Good afternoon, Niner faithful. Good evening, wherever you may be. Here we are on another Victory Monday, and it feels so sweet to be able to talk about the San Francisco 49ers coming off of a win. I'm very excited about the guests that I have joining me today. I had the privilege of joining this gentleman on his podcast, and the back and forth, the dialogue was just so natural that it was only fitting to bring Randon onto my show here so that we could break down a 49ers victory. Everyone, please welcome Randon McMahon to the show. Randon handles a podcast, The Genuine Draft, specifically for the 49ers. Randon, why don't you tell the folks how they can follow your content and get a hold of your 49er goodness?
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff over there. So it's the at Genuine Draft _SF. Me and then another guy, Ro, are typically doing podcasts. He has a little bit different style than me. So you get a little bing and bang there, depending on who you like, maybe both people there. And mine is obviously Rando Commando 24 on Twitter. During baseball season, we do a lot of other stuff with the A's, the Giants, some Sharks, and then I'm also a part of Hockey Royalty for the LA Kings. So a little bit of everything. I like sports all the way around. So.
Nice. I undersold it as just 49ers content. I should have said 49ers content is what I'm obsessed with, and yet you're covering.
It's prime time right now, so that's where we're at.
That's right. So how are you feeling just overall after that fantastic victory yesterday? You riding high like I am?
Yeah, I am. Because you know what? It's like, it wasn't like I thought we'd get the win, right? It's one of those teams that you really want to go and just have a really constant game. But there's a lot of stuff that we're titled trap stuff, right? You're like going across the continent. You have playing Monday night, so a short week.
Right.
You just saw the Jaguars beat the Bills, so you're like, okay, are they catching fire? So there's a lot of stuff that could have been, a trap game-esque type stuff, and we went in there and handled business, which is what you want to see, Starting the game out, I was, focused, and then you're like, okay, and I can just drink beers freely because this game's in hand.
There was less stress involved with this game than a lot of the others in the second half. Yeah, I still tense up. I gotta be honest that the 49ers have put me through enough this season that I feel as if I have PTSD. And so when things are going well, there is a part of me that's sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop and something poor to happen. Thankfully, that's not been the case the past 2 weeks at all.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we can't be mad about that. And we'll get into it deeper, but we talked about it on the pod here. Like, take the season a chunk at a time. And, how many games were they going to win in November? And so far they got 2. They have a possibility to go 3 out of 4, which, is going to be something that's going to help push for playoffs. And we'll talk about that later on.
Yes, indeed. As we talk about those topics that get us into this 49ers win, our first topic is going to be about winning the battle between the ears. The Niners have been winning that battle between the ears, the mind game. The Jags, on the other hand, committed 3 penalties to extend drives, 2 on that very first drive. The Niners played a clean game, 1 penalty all game. Jennings in the exchange that got the other player, starting safety, ejected for the Jags, kept his cool, had a smile on his face as the camera panned in to Jennings. Do you see it, Randon, as the small things that are helping the 49ers win games at this point?
Yeah, it's you look at the last 4 games, right? The games that we won, no turnovers, right? So that's definitely going to help. I love the Jennings play. Let's throw that out there first, especially for a young guy, hasn't got a lot of playing time. And the other guy was a captain, right? So
yeah,
you think that he would have been more of the awareness type person, but he wore that punch right in the face, smiled back at him like a UFC fighter, like, yeah, you want to come bring some more? Then headbutts Jimmy Garoppolo without a helmet on, and then chest bumps Kyle Shanahan. So I think he definitely had the upper hand and was psyched after that play for sure.
Yes, he was. It almost struck me that he purposefully antagonized the other player, that he knew he was getting under his skin and he was able to push it to the cusp and force that ejection. And then you're just in a situation where it seems for the Jaguars, things are snowballing. And when you talk about momentum, the 49ers had it, in droves for the game. And that was just a small piece of it. To me, the clean game for the 49ers is essential. The style of football that they're attempting to run right now is very complementary. And complementary football absolutely relies upon the offense playing a clean game and the defense forcing a couple of turnovers themselves, or at least winning the turnover differential. Now, I went into the Jacksonville game expecting that to be the case for the most part. You had a Jacksonville team that was -10 heading into the game, right? They're obviously -12 now. And the 49ers were on top of it. Another call out for Jauan Jennings is the awareness, the situational awareness, and the fact that he was in his right frame of mind when he pounced on that Jeff Wilson Jr. fumble and saved the 49ers from turning the ball over then. So a couple of props for Jauan Jennings. Can they keep this up going forward? Is this mistake-free style of football sustainable for the 49ers, in your opinion?
I think it's going to be tough, right? Because every game is a different game, different atmosphere. We've been lucky the last 2 games, Rams and Jaguars, to get up quick, right? So
Yes.
we got up quick. The momentum's in our favor, which means when you're tilting as a team, right? The Rams fully expected to come in there and kick the crap out of us, right?
They did.
So, and then those 2 turnovers right away, plus the long drive, right? That 13-play drive was the longest on the season for any team. And then they double up with a 20-play drive this time, almost took like 13 and a half minutes off the clock.
Yeah,
like,
record settings. It was the longest drive since 1997.
So, like, when you're that kind of team, you're on the field the whole time and your offense can't get going and you're down big already, that mentally creeps in. And then the Niners are in the driving seat. All they have to do is not turn the ball over. They can play clean football and win in their style of the game, right? I think they ran for over 80 times in both games combined. Yeah. So it's just that's the type of football that Shanahan wants to run, is mistake-free and run it down their throats.
You love it. You think, oh, well, after the Rams game, 44 carries, there's no way you hit 40 again. Nope, 42. Like, there it is. No. Just gonna lay another 40 burger on the Jags. What do you see as contributing to this mistake-free football? Are there any areas of the team you can point to where you really think it was a turnaround and they changed something, or has it just been bad luck followed by good luck?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. One, it was discovered that there was a closed-door players-only meeting that by a couple of the captains, and they really brought it together, and they're the people on the field, right?
Yes.
And now the team goes into Jacksonville. The coach had a phenomenal game plan on all sides of the football. All three parts of the team won in this game, and they were extremely well coached. And so you got to hand it to the coaching staff, and then you got to hand it to the captains to dig that out of their team, knowing that after the Arizona loss, this was where the season needed to turn around if they were ever to have a chance at playoff football.
Yeah, to me, so many of the penalties and mistakes that were happening in earlier games seemed as a result of players attempting to do too much. Players losing confidence in their ability to execute at the right level and then overexerting themselves and making, quite frankly, bonehead mistakes. And now that the 49ers are rolling, that momentum in and of itself has the potential to carry forward into further mistake-free football, winning begets winning type of attitude. Is mistake-free football the only recipe for success for this team? We know that as a run-first team, getting down in a game can take you out of that identity. Kyle Shanahan has certainly gotten away from what makes the 49ers such a successful running team at times when the other team isn't even doing much to stop it. He sort of out-schemes himself in that regard. Are the 49ers capable of a 2019 New Orleans Saints type of game if they get into a match like that?
I think they can be, and the way they are is with Yak. So I think like Deebo Samuel's only in his Yak yards. I think he's a top 20 receiver in the league with just yards after the catch.
That's amazing.
So you're looking at, are they able to make the plays? Are they getting the balls in the playmakers' hands? The beginning of the season, it was just Deebo, right? And then you have a rookie in Elijah Mitchell. Now they're forcing the ball to Ayuk. Now they're forcing the ball to Kittle in the end zone. I think 3 straight games with a touchdown in the red zone. So they're getting more of those players, available to win games, right? And so when you have more guys keying off, it's gonna be harder for a defense to focus in on just Deebo.
I love it. George Kittle, it is so strange to me that he, in his career, had never had back-to-back games with a touchdown. Now he's up to 3. And the vast majority of his touchdowns in his career, I mean, he's always been slighted in that department. The vast majority of them came on deeper shots. Not many were red zone targets. And it never made sense to me. It's nice to see that turning around now. All right, I know we have a couple of comments that I want to get in there. I see Joe Mama throwing in the super chat. Got to throw that up there first and foremost. Thank you, Joe Mama. After we beat the Vikings, we can ride high. We are 5-5. I'm not ready to crown us legit after beating a rebuilding Jags. Vikes are a great test. I have to agree that I have felt each week that each game is the next test for the 49ers. For the Rams, it was, is there any hope for this season? Are we just going to have to flush it down the drain if we can't win one against the Rams? It felt as if we were circling the toilet bowl around that time. And then we all were lifted for joy because they were able to manhandle the Rams. And then it was, it's a trap game possibility, but sure enough, they beat the Jags as they should. But now you have a lot of fans saying, and potentially rightfully so, that it's just the Jags. That doesn't tell us anything. Well, now 5-5, heading back home, we play a Minnesota Vikings team that is also 5-5. Do you see this as a good measuring bar, knowing that we're going to get into this topic a little later as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good measuring bar because you have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook, right? So Justin Jefferson is top 10 wide receiver. Dalvin Cook's a top 5 running back, depending on whatever metric you want to look at. And right before coming on, I saw somebody post something on Twitter that there's only, I think, in their first 10 seasons, Kirk Cousins has 25 games of over 300 yards and 3 TDs in a game. And that's third all time. So like in the first 10 seasons. And so he can sling the rock, and
yes,
they can keep up with people that way, regardless of their defense. Everybody's saying, "Oh, we beat the Jags. We beat the Jags." Okay. If we won 17-10 or 13 to like somewhere our offense didn't show up against a bad team, then I'd maybe have pause for concern, but we destroyed them. A W is a W. We went in there and handled business. And that's what you're supposed to do. You should be happy about that as a Niners fan.
I couldn't agree more. You can only beat the teams they put in front of you, and doing so as you should with a Jacksonville team that you should beat handily, to then go in and beat them handedly is absolutely what's asked of you in order to inspire confidence. A quick question here from Victor Mendoza. Rob, also, do you think Josh Norman can be a leader on the defense that the 49ers need? I have to agree that it seemed as if it was a defensive-only meeting that occurred in that game, and that it was the defensive leaders that stepped up and set the tone. But I'm starting to hear those leadership voices in the locker room, and I have said it multiple times this year that it's not always the leaders that you expect. Leaders are made in situations like this. Leaders step up. There's incredible pressure. And so I do think that you're starting to see that. I'm not so sure that Josh is one of the top ones in my book, but he is a veteran presence.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually, if they actually need him to be there. He's creating a lot of turnovers and everything like that. But as far as like a locker room presence, that's what the people wearing the C's have. And you have Tart and Ward, who have been there forever, in the secondary. And Josh Norman just needs to play his game and lead by example rather than vocally, in my opinion. But you see other guys like Bosa, who's typically been a guy who just handles his business and gets after the quarterback and really doesn't say much. And you saw him on the field this week, talking to other defensive linemen and the referees and everything like that, and trying to be maybe a leader in his positional group.
Yes. It fires me up to see Bosa take that leadership role. I worry that he's a bit of a mercenary feel to him. Almost, I think I have PTSD again from my 49ers because of Deion Sanders in the 94 season. I was so invested in Deion Sanders. And then when he left for big money in Dallas and championships, that broke me. And so I think I still have that about Bosa. When I see him come into pressers with his backpack on, I think, man, if he doesn't get his bag, he is going to have his backpack on and walk out that door. But I'm starting to see more of what I want to see from someone who's going to be one of the top paid leaders on this team, maybe the top paid leader on this team. That's probably a fair assumption. Getting into our next topic, cool running. So the 49ers stuck with the run yet again. It was oh so sweet. Even though the averages were low for both of the backs, not named Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, on the other hand, not so low on the average yard. So can they really continue along this path with getting that low yards per carry? So let me say these stats here on the Rams and Jags games, the yards per carry and total carries as they broke out. Rams, Mitchell, 3.4 yards per carry on 27 carries. Jeff Wilson Jr., 2.8 yards per carry on 10 carries. Deebo, 7.2 on 5 carries. In the Jags, more of the same. Jeff Wilson Jr., 2.6 yards per carry on 19 carries. Sermon, 3.2 on 10 carries. Deebo, 9.9 on 8 carries. Are you concerned about the low yardage averages for the running backs?
It can be, right? So in previous years, you had Maserati there, breaking off 70-yard runs here and there. Jeff Wilson seemed to have another gear before his injury. Granted, it's his second game back, so maybe he's still getting used to game speed and all that.
Right.
But, Sermon's not a burner, which, for his top end speed, what kind of gives me pause is that he didn't look fast out of the gate either, which he was second in that draft with the 10-yard split. So he got going up to speed really quickly, but didn't really doesn't have that burner speed at the end. And
no,
we mentioned
speed.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the first topic that big plays are going to need to be something that they can depend on if the mistake-free football doesn't continue. So, breaking those runs deep and doing that kind of thing like that. So it kind of gave me pause that none of them had a break a run over 20 yards. So, can that continue? Maybe not. But you look at the Jags, they played single high most of the time. They put a lot of guys in the box and begging Jimmy to beat them deep. And Shanahan, because they were up, just kept running it down their throats and 3.5, and got first downs. And so it's just going to depend. I think it's a recipe for success if they get out to a good start.
Yeah, I'm both encouraged and worried about this statistic because it is concerning when one of your backs is averaging a low enough yard per carry that 3 carries in a row would not net them a first down, right? If they averaged what they were in those contests. But the encouraging portion of it to me is that both of those teams the past 2 weeks had been selling out to attempt to stop the run, and Shanahan didn't get away from it. That even though they were averaging such a low clip per carry, Kyle Shanahan stuck with what was bruising the other team, what was breaking the other team, and what allowed the 49ers defense to stay fresh, stay on the sideline, come back in on schedule, not off schedule because of a pick that had just happened and they need to rush on the field. And they play that complementary style of football. So I'm very encouraged by that. And let's be honest, that the Jaguars are no slouches in run defense so far this season. As far as average yards per carry allowed, they were 5th in the league heading into this one. And I would guess, based on the yardage for all 3 of those, that they're probably still around that ranking even after the 49ers put up a significant number of yards on them. So again, they went up against a stout defense and they didn't back down. So to me, it's finding that identity, sticking with that identity it is the biggest positive takeaway I'm going to grab from that. Yeah,
I mean, they were allowed, to play a style of football that's similar to a boa constrictor, right? We got up big, you start tightening it up, they make another mistake, you start hitting some broken ribs, and by the end of the game, they can't move at all. And so, will they be able to do that constantly? Probably not. Will they have to be more inventive, maybe in the run game going forward? Possibly. But you look at, there was a lot of things that Jimmy was able to do to extend drives that helped with the run game. You saw Shanahan run more plays out of the shotgun in the run game against the Rams, and then run counters off the plays that he put on tape against the Jags this week. So he's kind of I think he's kind of having a renaissance with his offense and in the running game. And so we'll see how this unfolds going week forwards to see if he maybe runs another different crease off the offense he's creating in the few weeks.
It's a work of art when you see Deebo and Sermon in the backfield in the shotgun next to Garoppolo, and then one of them goes in motion, but it's Sermon, not Deebo, and then hand off to Deebo. He's just really in his bag right now, really designing plays well, calling them confidently. I am in awe at this stage, absolutely beholding it. All right, we got a couple more comments I'm going to try to bring into the show. Here we go. 49ers first takes with the super chat. Thank you, Aaron, here supporting one of the best YouTubers in the game. That's very kind of you, Aaron. I thank you for that. That's fantastic support. Really appreciate it. Gonna look for a couple of other comments and then get on to our next topic. Interesting one from Sean here. This game, you will see a lot of play action. Zimmer will not allow them to get 40 runs. This will be a Jimmy G game. Do you see it setting up that way?
Well, you look at what they've done with the shotgun and allowing them to get the quick plays. The play action is going to set up on the run. I think you could see a little bit of both, right? So he's used to doing the play action under center. They're running more shotgun now. It's, you're going to see both of those come to fruition here because, like we said before, the weapons on Minnesota's side, the offensive side isn't a slouch at all. And if they get behind this game or have to go punch for punch, you're going to need those play action plays, allowing the plays to develop downfield and let Jimmy throw it. He hit Ayuk on a dime, 35-yard dime on the outside of the numbers. And, that's the biggest knock on Jimmy. He can't throw outside the number. It was perfect pass. And
yes,
so they're going to need to see a lot more of those coming up on the Minnesota game.
Well, that takes us perfectly into our next topic here, the shotgun effect. It is clear that Shanahan has been changing up the offense to incorporate a significantly higher percentage of shotgun snaps. He's been lining Deebo up all over the place. Jimmy has certainly been executing in the new system. Do you see this as a recipe for success going forward? Will we continue to see the same percentage of shotgun snaps that we have?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see here because typically it's been, a Shanahan system, anybody can work within a system, Mullins and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And now I think this is the first big adjustment that we've seen that I can remember to his offense to benefit his quarterback. So
hallelujah.
So you're looking at play action benefits Jimmy because the fact that it freezes the defenders,
right?
And then he can use his quick release. Well, shotgun does something similar, right? You have the whole field in front of you. You hike the ball, and I think during the Rams game he was throwing for like 2.38 within 2.38 seconds, and so that's going to benefit Jimmy because you look at Shanahan typically in the 2019-20 season, he had all three of his quarterbacks in the top 10 on third down conversions. So you're looking at he's scheming players open, and you have to execute. Jimmy's been executing a lot lately, and the offensive line has to get some credit. I mean, you're looking, the sacks have been down, except for in the Cardinals game. I think there was only 4 sacks in the other 3 games combined. So I have those numbers here. I'll look that up while when you start talking. But they're limiting the amount of pressure, and so Jimmy can sit there and throw. He's hitting a lot of these window routes, right? So on the 4th and 7 against the Rams, Deebo went through multiple players. He threw that ball between three players for the touchdown there. The touchdown to Ayuk in the end zone. Ayuk sat between 4 defenders in the end zone. Ball threaded completely over the line of the defensive lineman and hit him in stride. So I think it's definitely benefiting him, and it's throwing more stuff on tape that the defensive coordinators have to account for. If it's just under center, play action's the only time that we throw the football. I mean, you saw games where Jimmy's only would have maybe 20, 30 yards on a normal pass play and 150 yards on play action. So they know, okay, if he's play action, it's probably a pass. If he's dropping back, I mean, we don't really have to prepare for that. So it's throwing more stuff on tape, and I think it's benefiting Jimmy for sure.
I think it is, and it is nice to see Kyle adjust his system to the quarterback because it is high time to do that. In my opinion, my humble opinion, That's what great coaches do. No matter how phenomenal your system may be, no matter how special Shanahan's play design is, you still want to be able to put your elite players. Let me take that loaded word out of it for people, because they may then debate the elite level of Jimmy Garoppolo. To put your most important players in a position to be successful, right? So targeting more shotgun snaps for a quarterback who is most comfortable in that scenario gives me hope that Shanahan will be able to adjust his system next year, when I'm assuming he will be doing it for a very different style of quarterback. I'm interested to know why Jimmy Garoppolo is so much more comfortable from the shotgun, whether it is the fact that he's immediately able to keep his eyes downfield and therefore doesn't lose track of defenders in the same way in which he would under center. I also wonder, and I'm not a footwork expert, but when I watch Jimmy Garoppolo as compared to other quarterbacks, there are times where I wonder if his footwork is a little looser than some other quarterbacks that you might see, that it's not quite as tight. And being in the shotgun could, in fact, make it easier on him to just focus on that quick release and not worry so much about the footwork.
Yeah, I think you look at the fact that like he doesn't step into a lot of throws downfield. Right. And so getting the shotgun, getting the ball out real quick allows for that quick release. And then I think Shanahan's also trusting a lot of his other wide receivers where he wasn't, right? Ayuk had a huge game, that touchdown. It all started with a 2-point conversion a couple games back where he allowed Ayuk to be the number one read. And for that 2-point conversion, ran a similar play for the touchdown for him this game. And so I think he's just allowing his receivers to beat, and there's going to be more options to win ball games. I mean, you look at Deebo only had 1 reception this game, and they allowed the throws to go elsewhere. And so I think it's definitely something to where you're giving more options for the offense, and then you're allowing Shanahan to call more plays against the different coverages, right, that they're being offered. Where it seemed before, it was like, okay, they're putting 8 people in the box. Let's just run straight at the 8 people constantly. And then one play action pass, if Jimmy didn't complete it, okay, that's a 3 and out. So it just seems that maybe Shanahan is like, okay, this season is winnable now, or he's finally being like, okay, I'm not the best play caller in the world. Or maybe he's like, hey, I got to prove it again. I am the best play caller in the world.
Right.
Whatever reason, I'm glad to see the different looks that we're giving defenses.
Something lit a fire under his ass, that's for sure. And he has responded. Let's be clear about that. Getting back into a few of the comments. Waruna in here with a super chat. Thank you for that, Waruna. Yes, it is good to see Randon and Rob together before you could just hear us. And that was a great podcast. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was a fantastic podcast. If you haven't seen it, because it's audio. But if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it.
You can mentally see it. Just run the pictures.
You can picture it. You can then say, well, I've seen their backdrop, so let me just envision them speaking as they do. Joe Mama coming back in. Joe Mama in the house. Did you guys see Kyle dap up Jennings after the brawl? I think Kyle actually is invested in this team. That support goes a long way on a team battling. I did see that, and I was fired up by it. Again, I had a recent a gentleman that I do exchanges with on Twitter who was at the game for the Rams game, and he brought his binoculars, and he did an interesting observational experiment wherein every free moment that he had, he was watching Shanahan and his body language on the sideline. And very contrary to some of the conspiracy theories that may be out there, his impression, direct observation, was that Shanahan absolutely has the respect and command of that sideline. And I have to say that I don't think I ever really had a doubt personally, but I know a lot of 49er fans did. I loved to see Shanahan commend Jennings because I thought Jennings did a phenomenal job of getting in the other gentleman's head, but playing it completely cool on his end.
Yeah, we talked about it the other week with Harbaugh, right? Like on the 4th down, he said to Lamar Jackson, "Do you want to go for it?" He was empowering his player.
Yes.
In this game, Jennings comes up with a big play, and then later on the game, he tries to get Jennings a touchdown. He tries to draw a play up exactly for him to get him a touchdown. And you're rewarding a player for his cool head and his his vigor inside the game, right? He likes those receivers who block downfield. He likes those receivers who aren't afraid to get up in people's faces in the run game, because that's his specialty. And I think he gave Jennings not only the dab in the game, but he gave him a trust by drawing up a play for him to try to succeed as a receiver.
Jennings is my favorite as the third wide receiver for what he brings to the game in run blocking. The guy had the best PFF run blocking grade for a receiver in this past game, and I'm looking forward to more and more of that. I think you have found someone in the mold of what Shanahan was looking for in Jalen Hurd, and I'm excited to see him continue to build in more aspects of the offense that complement that fact.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our next topic. We're looking at holding on to that Niner identity. It really did seem that the Niners found their identity as a hard-nosed running team, or rediscovered that identity as a hard-nosed running team that plays very clean, mistake-free, complementary football against the Los Angeles Rams, no slouch of a team, and then they double down. They double dipped by beating the Jaguars handedly. They destroyed them, I would say. Maybe hyperbole there. I love hyperbole, though. So do we really know who the 49ers are at this point? Have these last two games reestablished for us? Because for me, it was, this is who I thought the 49ers were when I did my research on this team in the preseason. This is what I expected to see on a much more consistent basis, and why I was so wildly frustrated with the beginning of the year for the San Francisco 49ers. I'm taking some comfort in believing this is their identity. How do you see it, Randon?
I think it's probably a combination of what we saw earlier in the year and now, right? So I think a lot of Niners Twitter is over exaggeration or overcorrecting. And so I'm just trying to remain level headed, right? We talked about, let's take this at a month at a time. If the Niners can go 2-2 or 3-4 or 3-1, then they're in the playoff spot. And right now they're in the driving seat to do so. So, I think they're doing a good job at riding the ship and playing more mistake-free football. You look at Lakeland Tomlinson's having a lot better year than what I thought. Trent Williams is, I think, almost had a near perfect grade for PFF in the run game going into the Jags game. And so he's the best tackle in football. You're looking at now Ayuk's getting involved. Kittle's coming back, 3 straight touchdowns. And so they're starting to incorporate a lot of the stuff here. And I think the biggest thing is, like we talked about earlier, is the mistake-free football. And so if they can get to running the football, allowing their defense to make plays, winning the turnover battles, and on a more consistent basis, they're going to be in the driver's seat. And if you look at, I'm a big fancy stat guy. So if you look at since the Bears game, Jimmy is first in the league in EPA per play. So expected points added per play, which is 0.4 per play. And he's completing 5% more than expected on his throws. And so he's doing a fantastic job in what he's being given. And they're not outside the Arizona game. He's thrown for 20 to 25 times a game. He's completing over 70% of his passes. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. And the fumble that they had in the Jags game was recovered, where earlier in the season we were losing a lot of those. And so it's nice to see that they're putting their best foot forward to constantly win games.
Yes, it is. It's nice to see them rounding into form as they crest that 500 mark and have a legitimate shot at controlling their own destiny from here on out. If you can sit in that position late November and be rounding into form, truly developing that run-first identity, this is the type of team that nobody wants to run into. This is the buzzsaw that you don't want to come up against at the end of the season. Obviously, we've got a lot of ground to cover in between now and then, and the 49ers need to stay focused on a week-to-week mentality. How do you see this weekend's matchup against the Vikings as far as its season-defining effect? Is this a bigger matchup than some of the other ones that remain on the schedule, or do you still break it down in a very measured fashion wherein each week has a similar level of importance as far as defining who the 49ers are?
Stock B in that one right there. I think that you're looking at, it's a week by week. You got to win every game in front of you. And so we know that the schedule coming down, we have one game against Seattle, one game against the Rams, several easy opponents that we should beat, similar to the Jaguars, and then some teams like the Bengals and the Vikings that are the middle ground. But they got to take it one game at a time.
Yes.
If they're thinking playoffs right now, then we might lose some of these games because they're thinking too far ahead. They got to come in and take care of business every single week and take that one game at a time, because you're looking at those spots are up for grabs, and so they can't get too high right now. But I think that the identity that we're talking about is, I don't like the 2019 vibe quotient that everybody uses, but the defense is 7th in DPA per play, or 7th in the league, I think, or top 10 at least.
Right.
And so they're playing good defense. They're starting to create turnovers. Norman with the punch outs. We had 2 picks from Ward last week, and we're starting to do those things. And so the defense is helping out. The offense is moving the ball more consistently. We're having long drives. And so, that's the key to winning games is slowly smothering teams. The games that we always have a problem with are the games where we get boat raced early and then have to play, and Jimmy has to throw the ball over 40 times. So as long as we don't do that and create, or step our foot in a hole in the first quarter, generally we're in a lot of these games and can play winning football.
That's an extremely measured take on it, and I think very logical for me. And I'm a big fan of a logical approach to breaking down the NFL season. So on one level, I completely agree with you. On my emotional side and the hyperbole that can add to this dialogue, I would say that this one to me feels bigger. This one will answer for me a lot of questions that I have about the identity of the team, about their heart, and about how they're going to respond to having been punched in the mouth to start out the 2021 season. The Rams game was absolutely desperation. It was must win, had to. Like I said, the season was circling the drain at that point, and that was a season saver. The Jags was like, ooh, what's going to happen? You're supposed to do one thing. If you're a good team, you will. But if you're an inconsistent team, who you've shown to be till now, this could be trouble. But now, check both of those boxes. To me, this is, okay, great. Now you've proven you can get yourself on a winning streak. You're going up against a real contender, one that has a favorable matchup, you could argue, that the offense of Minnesota set up against the secondary of San Francisco could potentially be trouble. So for me, this one is bigger than most. Now, go ahead.
I would agree with you. And you're looking at, but we've said the defense has come up big in a lot of games. You look at the Arizona game, the first one with Trey played, held that offense pretty quickly with that receiver core. And so DeMeco Ryans is going to be charged with a big task in this game. Nice to meet you too. And we'll see if the defense can hold up, because that's going to be a big thing. You saw, Justin Jefferson with over 140 and 2 tugs this week against Green Bay, and Thielen ain't no slouch in the red zone. And you probably have arguably the best running back that we've played all year, maybe outside of Jonathan Taylor, yet that game was in a monsoon. Right. So, there's a lot of high athletes where they can target any part of the field that they want to exploit this defense. So it'll be a big game for that part of the field.
Well, one of those players that is essential to the success of the San Francisco 49ers in containing the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday, you could argue is a potential defensive player of the year candidate, comeback player of the year candidate, Nick Bosa, who finally did get his offensive holding call that we've all been waiting for. I know you were ready to celebrate that.
Yeah, the parade is tomorrow in San Francisco. The whole team will be out there to celebrate the holding call. So pack the appropriate the clothes for that.
Yes, as I hope every member of Niner Faithful is there, because we've been waiting on this one. We've been waiting, and we can only hope that those flags continue so that he can not be held every single down, not get put in a chokehold on a regular basis. We shall see. I'm not going to get overly optimistic on the refs having our backs on that. But in all seriousness, he is averaging a sack a game after his 2-sack performance, one of those being an easy push out of bounds, but you got to love those. Those are always a part of a high sack total season. 10 sacks through 10 weeks. Do you think he's in serious consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, as you see it?
Yeah, I mean, he has to close the season out, of course, but you look at the schedule is relatively on the easier side as it's been all year, and so he definitely can do that. Myles Garrett's probably the lead in that right now as far as the overall Defensive Player of the Year, and so can he push that forward? But he's starting to get help. Arden Key has three consecutive games with a sack, where before he was doing it all himself. And then never forget the effect of a primetime game, right? So you play Monday night. The whole world is watching, and you're seeing him get like stranglehold by the tackles constantly. And the referee commission's probably like, okay, we need to watch out for that because this guy's getting held left and right.
Right.
And
the
then the
league
next
office sees that on national games.
Yeah. And then so now they go into the next week, he gets multiple holding calls. The sack he was getting choked. One of the sacks he was getting choked, and he still pushed the quarterback over. So he's getting a little bit more help. We had a primetime game, which throws a lot of those issues into focus. And, now he's getting more of those calls. And, when you start getting into the consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, referees notice that stuff too. And I think that might lead to him getting more national recognition and maybe more calls because of it.
You've got to hope. You've got to hope. He has faced everything so far this season. They've been moving him around the line to try and get favorable matchups. He certainly had his fair share of tight ends chipping on him on multiple occasions. He's consistently facing the double teams because, to your point, no one as of yet has really stepped up to offer any type of bookend support for him. Arden Key has been playing well recently. Do you see that as a result of again, moving him around the line and moving him inside on several of these plays?
Chris Kasurik is probably the best position coach that we have. And so I think you look at him being longer in our system and having more work and more time with him is probably helping. You're looking at Arden Key, his athletic score when he was drafted, it was super high. And so maybe it's just the finer points he's learning. And then playing with Nick Bosa, he's a tactician. He's probably has the best handwork in the game.
It's
amazing.
amazing.
So when you're constantly being around those guys, like the saying everybody wants to use is iron sharpens iron. But
that's right.
Even on the bench, you're talking like, hey, when the tackle does this, what do you use to combat that? Because Bosa, in 2019 when he was a rookie, was one of the top in win rates and secondary win rate. So like when you get beat by the tackle and you have to go to your secondary move, like he has combination moves that he's throwing together where most defensive ends really only have one move, whether it be a bull rush or what have you. So it's good to see that maybe he's rubbing off, and maybe like we talked about earlier with the leadership, maybe he's just speaking up more in practice and starting to talk to players more where, like I said before, I think he was just a guy like, hey, I'm going to come in here and handle my business, and that's who I am.
Yeah, and that would be a huge improvement to have because he is a tactician. I mean, just amazing moves, amazing ability with the hands. And everyone remarked on just how complete he was in that area of his game coming in as a rookie, which is sort of unheard of. But for the Bosa family, hailing from that small spot in Florida, his father definitely raised a couple of boys that knew how to handle themselves on the football field. And Nick had the opportunity to watch Joey doing everything so successfully and just clearly takes everything very seriously. When you watch the way in which he prepares, the way in which his body is conditioned, the muscles on muscles on muscles that man has, it makes me sick, right? Because I'm like, well, I can't possibly do that. But it's also something that I greatly admire in a football player because it allows him to just at times bull rush the hell out of someone that seems like a much bigger player. And it always is remarkable to me. An important lesson in leverage, kids, in case you are unfamiliar with that
I want to say one more thing on that. And I think maybe him being the youngest brother might be understated, right? So yes. I'm the oldest brother playing, we played baseball. So playing catch with the younger brothers, they're used to me throwing harder at them. And so then when they're playing against kids their own age, it kind of helps out. And you're looking at him being the youngest brother, and his dad was also a defensive lineman, and they have all the resources to get him all the coaches that you could possibly hand. He's learning things that he doesn't have to learn the hard way. He's learning from everybody else. and how to develop that. And he actually lost weight and started going to do yoga and Pilates to be more flexible. So he was less injury prone with the soft tissue muscle. So he's making adjustments to be the best, pure athlete that he possibly can be on the end.
Yeah, he went and lowered his body fat percentage, which didn't seem possible when you saw him before. But sure enough, there he is, less body fat on him, just one big muscle at this point. Getting into the comments, Matt Schuh, who I was talking about moments ago. It was Matt who gave me the inside scoop on watching Kyle Shanahan on the sidelines. But Matt is in here, one of my SCH brothers. He understands my pain. He understands being called Scooey, Skahoo, Ska as a last name instead of Schuh. But yes, Matt Schuh is here. Who is the bigger problem for this week? Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, or an as yet unnamed other? I'll let you take this one first, and then I'll let you know if I agree.
I'm going to go with the both running backs, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. So earlier in the year, we were getting destroyed on the run game because the games were a lot closer, running up the middle. Jadeveon Kinlaw was our biggest defensive lineman in there to stop the run, and so he's gone. They've been moving, Armstead inside sometimes. But I think that if the game is close and they're allowing the Minnesota Vikings to run, I think Dalvin Cook and Madison are going to be the biggest issue. You look in the Rams game, I believe Henderson only had 5 runs the whole game because they were down instantly. And so they were already one-sided 1 quarter into the game. Same thing with the Jags. They're already one-sided 1 quarter into the game. And so I think Dalvin Cook is going to be the biggest issue because I think that's just bully football. You can kind of scheme for the deep threat of Justin Jefferson, maybe playing split safeties and not let anybody beat you and having Cousins have 7-10 play drives to go down the field. But running the football is a bully's game sometimes, and Dalvin Cook is one of the best to do it.
Yes, he is. And certainly the wide 9 is susceptible to getting gashed, in particular by someone with that home run hitting speed that Dalvin Cook has, that he could take it to the house from anywhere on the field. I have to agree with you wholeheartedly that I believe the biggest threat for the 49ers this weekend is Dalvin Cook. And it could be out of the backfield, right? It could be dump off passes from Cousins, but he's the weapon I'm most concerned about, which is interesting considering the matchup of the marquee wide receivers against a depleted secondary. But I'm feeling better about the alignments, about fewer missed calls with Jimmy Ward back out there communicating in the secondary. I think that's helping.
I will say one thing to look for. I know I don't have the readouts for the coverages in this particular game, but for the season, they've been doing a lot of man coverage on 3rd down. And so Emmanuel Mosley did a good job at going chest to chest on that play downfield during last game. And so
he did.
Not making those mistakes, but Justin Jefferson is one of the best players in the league to beat one-on-one. And so Cousins not afraid to throw the ball deep, especially on 3rd down. You have one-on-one coverage and beats them deep. So that might be something to look out for. I think over the long part of the game, it's definitely Dalvin Cook.
Yes. Most certainly it will be a challenge to keep up with those wide receivers. Very talented, in particular, as you point out, in man coverage. That will be a challenge for sure. Well, speaking of wide receivers, running backs, whatever you want to call him, Deebo Samuel, the all-around offensive weapon. He has continued his epic season to date. Deebo rushed for a career high, 8 carries, ending up with 79 rushing yards. He saved several of my fantasy football matchups by getting those rushing yards and said rushing touchdowns. He was the game's leading rusher. The Jags had a total of 54 rushing yards as a team. Deebo outgamed the Jags frickin' team. It was the highest rushing total for a 49er receiver. Get this, in the past 61 years.
That's a pretty long time.
61 years. 1960 was the last time a 49ers wide receiver had that many rushing yards. It was a different game back then, folks. But he only had 1 catch for 15 yards. Do you see this as a scenario where teams are going to continue to adjust and begin to successfully take away Deebo in the passing game?
I'll throw it back at you. Do you think the fact that it was just the fact that Ayuk had such a good game or Kittle had such a good game and and they have more weapons. Maybe they didn't necessarily take them away, but Shanahan was finally exploiting a different side of the field with other players.
I do see it as a two-parter for me. Yes, I do think that teams will adjust and they will begin to be able to take away Deebo in the passing game. I do think it's easier to scheme in ways that eliminate a single wide receiver if you want to, unless the team is willing to take significant risk, throw into double coverage, design specific plays to get him the ball near the line of scrimmage and hope for the yak yards. But it also had to be as a direct result that there were other emerging stars. And that's what you want. You want Jimmy Garoppolo to take the better read. You want him to make the safer throw. You want him to see the open wide receiver. And if teams are going to do everything they can to sell out, to stop Deebo Samuel in the passing game, then yes, it is time to open it up for George M.F. Kittle to get some catches. Brandon Ayuk to get a few out on the edge. It does set up for that. And certainly those players having good games contributed to Deebo's lack of catches. He now sits at 995 receiving yards, just 5 shy of that 1K mark that I'm sure he'll hit on the first play against Minnesota. Yeah. But the other piece is it showed me that Shanahan can creatively get Deebo the ball out of the backfield. And I think that is much harder to stop with the multiple looks that I have seen so far. If you're that creative, you can confuse defenses. I'm not going to say no matter what they're doing, but in most circumstances.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at it this way too. Like the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator scheme off each other, right? They see the personnel go on the field, you scheme that particular defense on the field. And so maybe they're like, okay, they're going empty set because they got all these wide receivers out there. Let's throw in our, nickel or whatever. And then Deebo motions into the backfield. And now you have the nickel playing the linebacker role and you're losing that weight inside. And so there's those things, the chess game that he's playing, putting him in different parts of the field. He's truly the best weapon in football all around. And I think
amazing.
And I think that he is what people envision Percy Harvin to be. And
interesting.
Yeah, I think that you look at, he's able to do everything. He's not afraid of any part of the field. He can beat you downfield. He can beat you in the screen game. He can play running back. He's getting pitches. He's getting reverses. I'm sure if they allowed him to throw a pass, he'd probably throw it on a dime. It's something that being a weapon and having these defined roles that people wanted to pigeonhole him in the beginning of the season. Oh, he's not a number one wide receiver.
Right.
Well, what is a number one wide receiver? Yards are yards, right?
That's right.
So wherever he's getting the yards at, and if you're scheming him to be in the best situation to gain positive yards, isn't that the point? I mean, you have Megatron on the outside, him one-on-one, that's the best scenario for him. Dalvin Cook, or not Dalvin Cook, but Devontae Adams outside one-on-one.
Yes.
That's the best situation for him. Shanahan's put him in the best situation, and he's definitely the best weapon in football.
And so tough. I mean, the only thing he's missing as the future Percy Harvin is the migraines. But his ability to run through contact, the fact that he has those tree trunks for legs that just allow him to flatten defenders, it's truly special to behold. And we are witnessing a really, really phenomenal season. I hope that he earns and is given a huge bag of money at the end of this year, because I think it's absolutely deserved at this point.
What do you think he's going to get? Let's go to that game. What do you think he's going to get?
Ooh, I haven't looked at the receiver market, but I mean, judging by Michael Thomas, I mean, you would think it would have to be in the $18, $19 million a year range, right?
I think he's getting over 20 million.
Woof. Man, when receivers start getting into the 20s, that is tough. But it's a bigger cap.
Yeah.
It is growing. All right, let's flip the script on receivers, although Deebo's a running back too, so really we're including him in this next topic. But the Niners have had 4 different leading rushers in different games this year, and they have had a different season-leading rusher every year that Shanahan has been the head coach for the 49ers. What conclusions do you begin to draw about the 49ers offense from those trends?
I think it looks at that's where that's where Shanahan makes his bread and butter, is in the run game. That's where his dad made the bread and butter. And the only thing that we haven't seen is Kyle Shanahan have a running back like Terrell Davis. So he's been able to, spring for different running backs going forward. And then the injury bug too. You look at the injury to the running backs time and time again, right? Mitchell's had a different injury almost every single game this year and has played through most of them. Mozart got injured this year on the second play. He came in because of injuries in 2019 and led the team in rushing. So I think it's just a little bit of everything. Shanahan's going to have to continue to be more creative in the run game and not rely on the wide zone, because I think over 50% of the teams run some variation of it. And so defense is getting used to it. And so you're looking at, can he start creating folds to his offense to combat the defenses getting used to it? And so can that happen with Trey Lance being more of a mobile quarterback? Can you see that fold coming into play? Is it the shotgun game that we're seeing with Jimmy Garoppolo and motioning the receiver down there, motioning the running back out, having different formations with different personnel? Is he starting to do that and getting defenses out of position? It's only gonna increase as it goes forward, and he uses his personnel more creatively.
It's a great call out about the commonality, not the commonality, but the fact that the outside zone runs are becoming more common within the NFL, and therefore defenses are spending more and more time practicing against it and becoming better equipped to stop it. And therefore you do have to continue to get creative. For me, the things I'm drawing from it as from a logical conclusion. Well, if you're able to do this with various talent around here, is it the talent there, or is it the other factors? So I start to look at the other factors. It has to be a fair amount attributed to the creativity of Kyle Shanahan's run game. And you called it out that since back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore, Mike Shanahan has been doing it since, I was a child. And Kyle grew up in that system and clearly has taken the fundamentals that Mike used within his run scheme and just taking it to the next level. But I also have to give credit where credit is due to the offensive line that is blocking up these schemes, and to Kittle and to Juice, because when I watch them operate in space and make blocks on the second level, it just blows my mind. It is so, it's art. It's precision. It's engineering. It's fascinating to watch is what it is for me.
Yeah, and you got to get execution in there as well as another word that has been more successful lately. And
yes,
it's just going to be something that is looking for, to where does Shanahan want to continue to evolve his playbook? I think in the beginning you looked at, he's like, okay, my playbook's the best in the league and I don't have to do anything. We'll just execute better than everybody else. And now he's starting to throw variations in there and really trying to event it. And you look at the amount of wide zone has decreased every single year that he's been a head coach, and they've added more power. They've added more counter to the packages. And so he's being more creative as a head coach. And I think that's allowing different running backs to succeed. Now, what I would like to see them do is what they did this year is invest in running back only in the draft. Right. I don't believe in paying running backs a lot of money just because you can constantly find them in the draft. And so,
yes, especially when you have Bobby Turner in the building.
Yeah. So you have every so often you draft a higher running back in the draft in maybe the third or fourth round and get somebody that can be there for cheap money for 4 years, and you're continually doing that because he's shown that he can be a successful running team with pretty much everybody in the building.
It's very wise roster construction to invest in that way. That's good value for the pick. I tend to think, that I'm surprised that Trey Sermon hasn't gotten more run time, with your pointing out that we are seeing more power runs, more of the counter runs, and with that short area quickness that he showed in the combine results in that 10-yard split, it seemed like a perfect matchup in those instances. I hope that we begin to see more of him as we go forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one question before, and then you can take that and add what you're thinking here. You mentioned Terrell Davis. I was on Grant's program. It was either I think it was last week. It may have been the week prior. And he mentioned a comp for Terrell Davis being Elijah Mitchell. And I'm not sure that I see that there, but I liked his optimism about it. Just how special do you see Elijah being able to develop within this system, given the skills that he has and how they complement what's asked of him?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at his running style. He likes to run outside in college, a little bit more upright runner,
Yes.
and so he's only going to get more confidence as he goes. He already has 300-yard rushing games, I believe, off the top of my head, and so for a rookie, that's definitely special there. And then look at, you're going to have him for 3 more years. He's only going to get better, and you're looking at with Sermon there as well. I think that maybe his confidence was a little bit shattered, and you just got to get him the ball a little bit more. I mean, you saw, I don't know what it means but him taking the Niners off his Twitter or his Instagram or whatever, but maybe he's a little disheartened that he's not getting the run where he was the guy at Oklahoma. Then he goes to Ohio State. He was the guy running for 300 yards a game. Like maybe that kind of like, this is the first adversity he's had not being the starter, and maybe it got him to more than you think. But I agree with Lee. I think Davis has more power in his legs than Elijah Mitchell does, but it doesn't mean Elijah Mitchell won't grow
Right.
or define his body. You've seen it with Deebo lost weight, Nick Bosa lost weight. Maybe he'll get a personal trainer into the right body for the style of run game that Shanahan wants going forward.
I just love hearing their two names in the same sentence. It makes me excited to think that we hit that well on a 6th round pick. Again, all hail to Bobby Turner. There's no question about that in my book. All right. Well, we have another super chat that we've got to throw in here. Joe Mama with the generosity coming in. No offense, Rob. This one I take offense to, Joe Mama. I just feel we are the Portland Trailblazers of the conference with Jimmy at the helm. Well, whatever could you mean by that, Joe Mama? No, let me continue. What happens when we can't just run in the playoffs? So I think the comparison here, having been a Trailblazers fan since moving up to Portland 8 years ago and witnessing a team that is very capable of making it to the playoffs on a regular basis, which there is no small feat and is something to be appreciated. But once into the playoffs, run up against defenses that then play them in one specific fashion and are really able to minimize the strengths of the team. And therefore, you have a scenario in where it's a very quick exit from the playoffs, which I think is what Joe Mama is implying there. Do you see that as the way it sets up for the 49ers, that they are a less dangerous team with Jimmy at the helm?
As compared to what? So I mean, you're looking at every team's built differently. They did it last year. Right. They did it in 2019. They ran over people. They played good defense. So can they do it? Yeah, sure. I mean, you look at Giants came in as a 6 seed, beat the undefeated Patriots, and they went on to win the Super Bowl, right? So you're looking at things. Anything can happen once you get to the dance. Me personally, as a Niners fan, we haven't seen a lot of dancing going on here in the playoffs. We haven't seen a lot of football in January.
Amen to that.
And let's get in first. Let's focus on getting in and going there. And do I think Jimmy can just full on just sit back in the pocket and throw 50 times a game? No, I don't. Do I think that our wide receiver core is probably, as the season's gone on, is probably maybe the best that we've seen Jimmy have? Maybe. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders was definitely dominant in the second half of that season.
Yes, he was.
But maybe they have a better wide receiver core this year. Jimmy has thrown more balls downfield that I can remember. Typically, I mean, he had 4 a couple of weeks ago, and so maybe he might. I mean, I don't know. This shotgun thing right now is only 2 games. So will he be allowed to, if it's a closer game, will he be allowed to throw farther down? Right now, it's run the ball 40 times a game and throw slants. So, which he's executing, right? He's had 2 games. I believe 2 of his games in this run were his top 5 QBR of his career.
Man.
So he's being efficient, and which is all you want to do. We're winning, right? Do I think that he could go back and forth with the team? He did it at New Orleans, so it's definitely possible. I still think we win by playing defense, run the football, and not making mistakes. So does he necessarily have to throw 50-yard bombs? No, but if he's not throwing picks, we're going to be in most games.
Yeah, I see Jimmy as having a few of the 2019 New Orleans games within him that it's not something he can do on a regular basis. I don't think we're making a deep playoff run if game after game that is what is required of him, but he certainly has them in him. He can come out firing at times if that's what the game dictates, but I'm much more comfortable if we are able to establish what we do so well, and that is play a completely complementary style of football starting around the run. And to me, again, it goes back to that is your identity, and therefore you instill your identity onto others. You don't allow teams to dictate to you what your identity is. If it's truly your identity, then you go out and you prove it every single time. That transitions us very nicely into our second to last topic here, which is about Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy has had a heck of a run, right? You pointed out to me in our pregame prep that for the first time in his career, Jimmy has had 2 or more passing TDs in 3 consecutive games. He has been backed into a corner. It looked bleak, and now it is back against the wall. He's playing some of his best football. How long do you see this lasting for Jimmy Garoppolo? Is this going to be short, sustained success, or is this the Jimmy that can ride it out for the rest of the year?
So everything's, I think it's like a stool, right? You have Shanahan's executing the plays. We're running the football somewhat effectively, and Jimmy is executing the passes that he has given. He had a deep 35-yard on the outside of the stick to Ayuk. He fettered the defense for the touchdown with Ayuk as well in between 4 of those guys. And so, he's handing the ball off a lot. It is what it is, but we're winning, right? So,
yes. And
then he's not throwing the ball to linebackers. He's not just throwing direct picks to safeties that are in the box because he didn't see somebody. So, can we expect him to throw no more turnovers for the rest of the season? No, that's not practical. But can he put a run together like this? Like, this is 4 games. We just saw 4 games. Yeah, we lost to the Cardinals. He had a couple turnovers in that game, but those weren't his turnovers. Those were fumbles by the wide receiver. So
after nice completions.
So that's 4 games in a row. How many do you have to win the Super Bowl? Right? So can he do it in the playoffs? Can he do it in the playoffs? Yeah, there's a chance. There's always a chance that he can get hot. Do I think he can do it for a full 17 games? Obviously not, because he didn't do it earlier in the year. But it just would be depending. I think if I'm going to go the Rob Schuh style and go optimism here, you're going the schedule to start the season was already weak. The schedule in the second half is even weaker. You have only a couple teams that we're playing the Bengals are better than we expected. The Vikings are probably what we thought they were. And Seattle has Russell Wilson back, but they're struggling to score points. And the Rams are probably not going to take a dump again in that game. And so, can we do enough to win those games? Are the teams ahead of us that much better than we are? I don't think so. I don't think it's a guarantee by any means for us to make the playoffs, but we just got to get to the dance. And when you're there, then any team can get hot. So, I'm not saying that he's going to be the reason we win. The reason is going to be the defense is going to play well. We're going to win the turnover battle, and we're going to run the football effectively, and he's going to play his part. That's all we need to do to win games.
Great call out. I do think that Jimmy can maintain this level of consistency, add back in a little bit of what you're used to seeing in turning the ball over, because I do think it would be unreasonable to expect that he's turned over some new leaf and become, Alex Smith a la 2011, where he's highly, highly efficient. But the offense is now being tailored to his strengths. And for me, Jimmy Garoppolo derives a lot of his success from his level of confidence. And that's why I think you see it coincide with strong run games, because he then has the confidence, okay, the team is doing what's asked of them. I just need to play my part in all of that right now. Where it does seem to be an issue is when Jimmy Garoppolo takes the weight of the world onto his shoulders, when he believes he has to try and do more. Oftentimes, that's where we end up seeing poor results from Jimmy. So to me, as long as the team continues to play at the level that they're playing right now, as long as the level of confidence within the organization, and that starts up at the top with Kyle Shanahan. If Kyle is in his bag and Jimmy is feeling good about the results on the field, I think that we can see this higher level of play, with the point that, yeah, there probably will be a couple of head-scratching turnovers in there for good measure.
I think this is maybe a point that maybe not a lot of people are talking about. And coming into the season, we were on the market for every single quarterback in the game. And if you could throw the football, Shanahan was looking at you. So
yeah, come on over. We'll take a look.
Come on over. Then we trade all those picks for Trey Lance. And then, they say Jimmy's the guy or whatever, but that was a short lease. And then, I thought Shanahan said after the Indy game that if Trey was healthy, he probably would have started that game. Didn't give him the full yes, he would have started that game, but probably.
Right.
Then in the Bears game, Shanahan got in Jimmy's face and said, "Hey, like, this isn't that hard. Start executing, and we can win this game." Since then, there's been some things here and there that have shown that I think the trust level has gone up a little bit with Kyle Shanahan, and maybe he'll start opening up the playbook for Jimmy on certain things. One, the 2-point conversion in that game where he threw the ball to Ayuk, and it was a one-stop read. He had to thread it between the linebackers to get the 2-point conversion. 2, 4th and 7. That's a big fourth down, and relying on Jimmy to throw the ball over the field to Deebo Samuel.
To a spot on the field, not to an open Deebo Samuel, but leading the receiver to a spot on the field.
Jimmy Garoppolo in the Bears game, broken play, the Deebo coming in motion. Alex Smack didn't hike the ball when he was supposed to. I believe that was supposed to be a handoff to Deebo on the end around, and he was going to run it in. He stopped Deebo right there, reset the play, took the ball himself, said, I'm going to get this on my own, and got the touchdown. And so there's a lot of things that he's been doing well. And, I'm going to, me, I was Trey Lance all the way to start the season. I thought we could have spent that $20 million somewhere else. But here we are. We're trying to win games, and Jimmy's playing good football. Like I said, 2 of his top QBR games ever were in this 4-game stretch. He's got, I think, 3 consecutive games with a passer rating over 100. Like, he's being effective.
Jimmy
G. So is he an elite quarterback? No. Is he a quarterback that can play well enough for teams to win? Yeah, if you have good defense and good run game, a la 2019, we can win games. And so I just think it's something that, I'm not expecting him to look at Ayuk one-on-one and with a DB and go, okay, he can beat that one-on-one matchup a la Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and say, hey, yeah, you beat him, I'll throw it up there and you catch it. Right. That's never going to be a part of his game. His game is going to be all about timing routes, having Shanahan scheme players open and hitting those players. And that's
and that's a scheme Jimmy can operate within.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to help out one of our people in the chat here.
All right,
because they have asked us, and so I think we've got to weigh in here. But Steven Duarte asks us, "Hey Rob, whose jersey am I supposed to buy when it seems like anyone could be gone next year?" I know who I've got in mind, and it's a guy who is about to get paid a boatload of money. I am looking to get my next jersey, and honestly, even if he ends up being gone for the type of season he's having, Deebo Samuel is getting my money there. Well, I'm sure he's not getting the money. The NFL is getting my money. San Francisco 49ers are getting my money. But Deebo is getting my representation there.
Yeah, you gotta like him, right? He's on Instagram all the time. He's a fun guy to be around. It looks like a lot of the teammates respect him. So where like you could have that, and if he gets paid a 5-6 year deal, then your jersey's good for a long time.
That's right.
If he changes his number to number 1, which is what he wanted to do this year, then you say, hey, I have a vintage Deebo jersey when he was 19. You can have all those types of things there. I think he did say that he's not going to change his number because he wants the fans to be able to be respected with the number 19. Who knows if that'll change if Ward leaves, but I think that's what it is there. But there's other players that, maybe aren't wide receivers that still have a lot of run. Fred Warner just got paid.
Yes, he did. He'll be around for a little bit.
He's a captain. He'll be around for a little bit. If you're a Bear burlier guy, maybe get a Trent Williams jersey. He's getting the money that makes 71 on your body. That that would look good there too. So
And that
a lot
makes
of
a
guys out there.
statement. That makes a statement. When you're the dude in the stands that has an offensive lineman's jersey, like that's a deeper level of football appreciation. That's an appreciation for the dudes in the trenches. I think you're onto something with that one.
I know Jimmy G's got the steel jaw, and then Trey Lance is the new QB. But how many people in the stands have those jerseys? Maybe 70, 80%?
Everybody.
Right? So you might be one. I know there's a content creator, Brad. He just bought his Trent Williams jersey. Hey, be one of the few. Go get an all-pro lineman and eat, man. He's the gorilla out there, and throw him some love.
The silverback, indeed. With the offensive lineman, it'll be you and their parents that are rocking their jersey, right? That's what you want. Yeah, Deebo for me, I still have, you can't see it.
I can't
Deebo
see it.
On the bike.
Okay. Oh,
yes,
there we go.
There it is, right? I've been rocking that thing for over a year and a half now because I'm just infatuated with Deebo, that's for sure. All right, getting into a super chat before our last topic here. Kurt the Chameleon throws this in. So the brand of football we're playing can honestly beat a lot of teams. Efficient, skilled execution. Deebo for MVP. I can't argue with that, Kurt. I think that it is true that the brand of football we saw, in particular the last 2 weeks, can beat most of the teams in the league. The concern I have, and maybe we'll get a chance to see it this weekend, is what happens if the other team gets up early. Because that could happen. The Vikings are a potent offense. If they get the kickoff, I will not be surprised if they march right down the field and score a touchdown. Now the pressure's on. Coach Shanahan has to stick to that run game, even if it doesn't work out in the way it has the last 2 weeks. And towards the end of the game, that is going to lead towards a worn down defense and maybe allow you to get back in it. It reminds me very much of Harbaugh sticking with the run back in the playoffs against the Atlanta Falcons in 2012, right? We were on the road, got down early, and stuck with the run. So that, to me, is the big question. Wholeheartedly agree with Deebo for MVP.
Yeah, if he's on pace, I know he took a dip in his yards per game average this game because of the one catch. But if he has all-purpose yards upwards of 1,900, you're definitely looking at a chance for MVP there. Jonathan Taylor just put up a massive game.
Yes, he did.
And so who knows, how that'll work out. But, for Deebo, it's definitely up there for consideration if he continues being the all-purpose player that he is.
Yes, indeed. We got another super chat from Joe Mama. Joe Mama coming back in. I got to put it up before we get to our last topic. Okay, guys, I'll clarify. He's clarifying for us. I like it. I appreciate that, Joe Mama. Appreciate your patience with us. Sometimes we don't get it the first time, but we will try and try again. So Joe Mama says, Jimmy is good enough, period. Can he put us on his back? No. I've seen this movie. I get we want to be optimistic, though. But, so Joe Mama, I have to agree. Yes, Jimmy is good enough. He can win within this season, within this system. He can execute Kyle Shanahan's offensive play scheme, especially with Kyle adjusting that play scheme to suit Jimmy's skill set. Can he put us on his back? I stand with the idea that he can on occasion. I'm not counting on him consistently to put this team on his back, but he has shown on more than one occasion that he has that game in him. So much like Alex Smith, where the vast majority of the time toward the end of his career with the San Francisco 49ers, I was relying upon him to win games through efficiency, through intelligent decision-making, through a quick release. I wasn't counting on many of the 2011 New Orleans Saints playoff games where it was an absolute shootout and we win a storybook freaking game. But that doesn't mean that you can't have sustained success with it. So I get the waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're saying to yourself, when is this bad boy going to fall on my head? Because good Jimmy's been out for too long. I think we may be seeing more of good Jimmy than bad Jimmy this year.
Yeah, I think fans are just in a toxic relationship with him, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's an
so,
abusive relationship for sure.
so you're like, oh, he has one of the best 5 games we've seen. When he came in 2017, gets injured, and you're just like, why are you getting injured on a run play outside the pocket and trying to break that play back inside? And
Yeah.
so it's like,
Hmm.
man, my girlfriend just cheated on me. Then we get back together in 2019. It's good for a while. 2020, he cheats on you again. You're like, come on, man. Like, why do I keep going back to this guy? Like, there's better people out there. And when
Right.
you see it all the time, and I truly believe he's not an elite quarterback, and he never will be. But I think that's why they went and got Trey Lance, because of the potential of Trey Lance that could be an elite quarterback in the game. But
Off the
go ahead.
off the cuff, where would you put him in your rankings? You put him in the 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 25 to 25 range, 20 to 25 range?
Over his whole career, or how he's playing this season?
I'd say, let's say with the Niners after the knee surgery. So 19, 20, 21.
10 to 15.
That's about where I'd have him. I think 15 is a fair range there.
Yeah,
All
doesn't
right.
have the athletic skill to throw deep, but more as consistently as you would like. But he's efficient, and he gets the ball out.
The people want to know playoffs? Playoffs? Indeed, the playoff picture. The 49ers are now currently sitting in a 3-way tie with a 5-5 record for the last 2 playoff spots. Now, if the season did end today, they would actually officially miss out on the wild card spots by way of tiebreakers. But thankfully, we still have 7 games of football to be played. So it will be a different end to this season, and potentially different teams that we sit in a tie with potential tiebreakers. With the upcoming game Sunday potentially having some major impact on this seeding race, who do you see as the biggest contenders in the group? Let me just pull up the NFL standings and read it off here. So we have the Vikings and the Saints sitting at 5-5 with our San Francisco 49ers. Below that, at 5-6, 2 teams, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers, who recently re-signed Cam Newton. Below that, maybe it falls off a bit and we don't even need to talk about them unless one of these is a team you see as a threat. At the 4-6 record, Washington, Atlanta, 3-6, New York Giants, Chicago Bears at 3-7, Seattle at 3-7, and the Detroit Lions, maybe the only team who will quickly be mathematically eliminated at 0-9-1. Who do you see as those biggest threats, Randon?
So you have a couple teams here that are very interesting, and all these teams have their flaws, and so it's going to be something to look at there. The Vikings defense was suspect coming into the season, but they can definitely put up points. You have the Saints, who unreliable quarterback play for the most part, but they have a tough defense. Jalen Hurd is putting people on his back and carrying this team, and they have some surprise games here and there. To where I don't know the stat for sure, but I believe he has the highest passer rating in the fourth quarter, or third highest, somewhere in there, in the fourth quarter, I mean. And so he's closing out games quite a bit, and Carolina has a good defense. And so there's a lot of to like about all these teams there. So let's go, we're looking at the schedule. I think the biggest thing, you look at the schedule, most of the hardest teams that we play are on the road. So at Seattle, at Cincinnati, at Tennessee on a short week, and then at the Rams. And, historically this season, we played better on the road, considering we got our first home win against the Rams. But all those, like, Seattle's not going to want to lose to us. Even though they're not in the playoff hunt really anymore, they're not going to want to lose to us. Cincinnati's in the playoff hunt. Tennessee is definitely in the playoff hunt.
Yes.
And the Rams are going to want payback. So I think those are going to be the indicators. Can we play good football in hostile environments come December?
That's a fair ask. I will be there in Seattle. That is a hell of an environment to have to play in. I mean, anytime, I don't care that it appears Seattle's wheels are falling off at this point. I mean, on Twitter, the meltdown of Seahawks fans and Seahawks YouTubers, it parallels very much what I have seen from some 49ers fans earlier in this season. but maybe even ratcheted up a notch. I watched a rant in which someone went on to say, just fire everybody. I guess we've heard that as well. Fire the head coach, Pete Carroll. Fire John Schneider. I'm not even sure if Russell Wilson should be quarterback. I mean, come on. How do you have Russell Wilson and not be sure if he's the path forward? But yeah, it is a team that's wildly inconsistent, but also a team that plays phenomenally at home, a team that plays the San Francisco 49ers extremely tough, a divisional matchup, two teams that know each other very, very well. That relationship feels a hell of a lot more like we are the younger brother still, trying to shirk off the older brother, much like Sean McVay must feel about Kyle Shanahan at this point. Then traveling across country a lot of miles to get over there to Cincinnati, a team that has a very high-powered offense at this point. Joe Burrow is putting up a ton of yards, racking them up. Some talented receivers on that team, some talented receivers with speed, and that's certainly something that you wonder if it will be a poor matchup on the road early start.
Chase is up for consideration for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I am rocking him on a couple of fantasy teams as well. Love Jamar. And, Tennessee, that one primes to be potentially a return game for the King, right? If he's back in it, that changes just how deadly they are. If you have the league's leading rusher, the crowned king of several years in a row, couple years in a row, back on the field, that would absolutely give them the edge in a short week traveling across country to play a very stout team. And if the Rams are not resting starters, revenge must be the first thing on their mind. So there are some tough ones. Now, how do you see it most likely breaking up? Would you agree with this statement that if you want to avoid tiebreaker scenarios deciding who ends up with that final wild card spot, is it safe to say that 10-7 is needed to avoid the tiebreakers?
Yeah, I would say 10-7 gets us in. I mean,
that's where I tend to put it. So that gives us 2 remaining losses on this schedule out of those 7 games. What do you see as the 2 toughest games that remain on the schedule? If I put you on the line and say you got to pick the 2 that are going to be the hardest matchup for the 49ers, those critical games, is one of those this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Vikings are riding high. I mean, they won on the last play, of the game there. And so you're looking at, they're riding high. They have a tough division in trying to keep up with the Packers and all that. I think, you potentially some trap games you might be looking at is in between going back-to-back road games and then preparing to go to Tennessee right around Christmas time. The Falcons are just sitting there, and that might be a little not a tough game, but it has the makings of a trap game in between 2 opponents that maybe you might be more focused on. So I think the toughest game will probably be the Texans on the second. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be probably it'll be the Rams, because you're looking at only the first overall seed gets the bye. So they would have to, they're at 7-3 right now. Cardinals are 9-2. You're looking at, they would have to climb quite a few spots. The Packers are also 8-3. You can't keep the Buccaneers out. So they might be playing for home field advantage, going in. Actually, they can't. If they don't make the division, they're the 5 seed. But they could be playing for that chance to win the division too. I don't know how many more games they have against the Cardinals. I don't have the schedule memorized, but I assume that they won't be resting their starters at that point.
I think that's a fair assumption. It would need to set up in such a way that they are locked in to whatever seed they're sitting at that point, and that the game wouldn't make a difference. And you have to assume that Sean McVay would have to weigh, if the 49ers are on the cusp of the playoffs, even if you've locked in whatever seed you are as the Los Angeles Rams, even if your game does not mean anything to your seeding, if it could potentially eliminate the San Francisco 49ers from the playoffs, from playing spoiler to you later on down the line, you might think that they would play their starters and attempt to knock us off that week. That does set up to be one of the most difficult. To me, just looking at it, the Vikings and the Rams strike me as potentially the bookends that are the most difficult. If we can check it off, it quickly becomes Tennessee as that other difficult one. it could work out to where 9-8 and a few tiebreakers get the 49ers into the playoffs. They have to be careful of no more trap games. Atlanta did that to us in 2019, where we came in and should have beat them, and that Julio Jones catch at the end sealed the victory. Well, fingers crossed that the 49ers can make that push and can reach the playoffs this year so that we have relevant football in January. How about that?
That's all I'm asking for. That's what I want for Christmas is relevant football.
Amen. All I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth and the 49ers to have relevant football. Well, we end on Tommy Huxley's kind $2 donation to come in, compliment my beautiful bald head and the Schuh pronunciation. Cheers to you, Tommy. Thank you very much for that kind donation. Randon, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on here today. Why don't you remind the folks again where they can find your stuff and listen to that podcast?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you and I have bonded very quickly with the back and forth here, so I look forward to doing this again. You can find me, my Twitter handle is right there, at RandoCommando24. I do mainly, all my Niner stuff is at the Genuine Draft _SF. The Genuine Draft can be found on where all the podcasts are at, and we should be starting a YouTube thing here in the future. So if that does happen, we'll have Rob on it so you can see his beautiful mug as well as mine.
No question. I will be lined up to be on that show. Absolutely. People are saying great show. I echo that sentiment. Thanks again for coming on. Let's go watch some Monday Night Football. I'm hoping that I can turn on the TV and see that I have a couple of touchdowns for my fantasy football wide receiver. I need Tampa Bay Mike. Why am I blanking
Evans?
on his name?
Evans?
What's that?
Evans?
Yes, Mike Evans to have a 2-touchdown game tonight. Let's hope he already has those 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans, this one's to you, buddy.
Yeah, there we
go. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. And again, Randon, thanks for being here. And we will see you all again soon. It is Thanksgiving week. Let me just say that I won't have the usual number of shows this week. I'll be out of town, out of my little studio here. I will be back for Sunday. I'm going to try and post a mailbag that will be pre-recorded. I'm going to be staying at my folks' house. They have terrible internet service, and I will not be attempting a choppy live stream. So I will upload a mailbag video on Wednesday and then see you all again live on Sunday. Until then, cheers, 49er faithful.
Cheers.